Okay. I'm going to try to finish off halacha aleph. It's okay. You know it by heart. We're going to finish halacha now. Halacha aleph. Okay. So first, just some things that I forgot to mention last week. 2 points about the homogenizer is, first of all, when a homogenizer, the pistons of the homogenizer are very thick. They're like this big, and they're long and thick, which means it takes them a very long time for them to get hot. So during production they get hot because hot product can flow through them for hours at a time. We'll see in halacha hey how that makes a difference, how it turns it sort of into a cleavation. So when you're kashering, if you kasher it, we talked after we finished, we talked for a minute that the thing has to get hot. If you just flow water through a homogenizer for 2 minutes, that piston is not going to get hot. It's a really huge, thick piece of metal. We were talking about from the cheress side of it, but I should have mentioned that point, which is that it's got to flow through enough to get the thing hot. And so quite a thick piece of equipment. You have to go down. We'll talk about that more in halacha.
How much is it by layer?
So we'll talk about in halacha that it really gets treated sort of like a cleavation. That's why I'm just mentioning it because we talked about it.
So what are you saying over here? You're saying that let's suppose that during production that whole piece of piston gets very hot. So you're telling me so when you kasher, you have if it takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes of hot water going through it to get that thing hot, you got to do 2 or 3 minutes?
Yes. We'll see more about that.
So you're like, I don't know. If
the other is just steel, so they can clip. Let's look at a cleavation where they're kakulai.
Right. That's correct. So it's a more halacha hate issue. I just want to mention we talked about homogenizer. I'm sorry, it's sort of like not really the place here, but that's correct. There's other examples of that we'll talk about. And the other thing was that I forgot to mention when I read the document about homogenizer, I saw that it said there that a homogenizer there's so much friction of the pistons moving back and forth that there's water used to cool off the pistons. Okay, in the back end. The back end is water used to cool it off. Okay? Right. While it's moving, those pistons keep moving all day long like this. So in the back, there's water, a little bit of water dripping on them to keep them from getting overheated. Okay. So that water. So 2 things. Usually that water goes to the garbage, but potentially they could use that water on the plant. And the other side of that is that the water could come from a trace side of the plant. I mean, companies have all kinds of creative ways of using water, reusing water. So water that was used in one piece of equipment, a chiller, was finished. So before they throw it into the garbage, might be used as the water here to cool this thing off. So it's just a potential for bleed. It's not easy to get a bleed like that, but there's a potential. It's worth when you look at the homogenizer, aside from looking at to see if it's made out of cheress. Right. It's very hard to get a bleed in that thing.
So what's the concern exactly?
Because the water shoots at there'll be like a thin stream of water pouring on the
so bleeds are going to come from what to what?
So if the water is milchig, if the water is milchig or trace, now it's coming right next to your power product.
While it's running a kosher product.
While you're running kosher product, then it could. So then,
of course, they're not going to actually. There's no contamination, actually, right?
No physical contamination, but bleed contamination, potential bleed. Okay, so that it's just something. Aside from picking up the thing to look at the thing, you could say where does the water come from and where does the water go to? Okay, it's usually it's just plain tap water going right to the drain. That's usually okay. The cast iron pot, the update. I'm not really finished. Just an update on it. I kashered half of the cast iron pot because I wanted to kasher half and see what happened. I expected to see loads of the raspberry bleeds pouring out of it. I saw nothing. I tried in 2 different pots. I saw no signs of bleeds, or I hoped at least to see a little oil on the surface or something that would make me really feel better. I saw nothing. The kashrus side doesn't look any different than the not kashrus side. What I didn't do yet is I want to now scrub it. Supposedly, if you scrub it,
you only kashered one side.
One side. No, one side, like the left side to the right, not the front side to the back. And then I wanted to kasher I wanted to scrub it with soap and scrub it to see if you could really get something off. We'll see about that. And I also have not spoken to him first yet, so I will not tell you what he said until I get it from him straight. Okay, let's go back. Let's start over here. Okay, we skills maybe we'll finish next week. Okay, fine. Okay, the Rama says we had said last week that you have to take these kelim. You're not allowed to use them on Pesach. You're not allowed to even keep them out. They have to be put away. That was like a hilchos Pesach question. Now I get more to hag'alos kelim. That it says on the second to live on Hetzer Chesika Be'esh Ein Moel Behem V'lo L'Shum Kli Cheress She'Nishtam Behem Chamin Afilu Shlo Yedei Ha'or El She'ira L'Soich HaRoischin V'yesh Oisin Afilu B'Kasheni. That if you would think is you of course can't do hag'alah. He's not even telling you that's like implicit here. You can't do hag'alah, And you can't even do Libun by just sticking it into the oven and heating it up, because when you do Libun, this is a din of Kabbalah Kach Plotay, that just like the Blia came in from the inside of the Kli, so too the Blia has to go out from the inside of the Kli, and therefore putting the fire on the outside of the Kli. If you just stick it into the oven, the fire is going to be on the outside of the Kli. That's not considered Libun. This is from the gamur. And the reason for that is the principle is Kabbalah Kach Plotay. Even though the heat is in the same side that it was during the Blia also, but the food was on the inside, so the fire has to come from the inside also. So just sticking it back into the oven again is not going to do the trick. Okay. That's what the Mechaber says, and this din we're going to next week. Halacha Beis is more about this, and we're going to talk about that. That's having been on the inside and the outside. That's more Halacha Beis. And then the Mechaber and the Ramah say that even the din is even by Kashering. This is also. This is really the original part of this thing comes from Ramah in Samach Ches in Yeridea, where he says that l'chatchilu u'machmir that a Kashering does have blias. That's l'chatchilu have u'machmir. Samach Ches. No, it's in Blias. It's from I think in Hilchos Molicha. I think that's where it is. I don't remember. It's someplace not where you would expect it to be. That is that you have to. That the Kashering does have Blias. L'chatchilu u'machmir. Over there it says, but the Yever we're not machmir. But the Yever, if we made a food, it's not usher. But the Mishnah Berurah says here that for Pesach we say. Just about everybody holds that even the Yever it's also for Pesach. Except if your mama should get everything, you get a
Pesach, even before Pesach?
He doesn't. He sounds. I assume still on Pesach. Before Pesach, it's hard to imagine how it could be also. But he's talking about you didn't kasher it, or you kashered it wrong, and now you want to use it on Pesach. Even if it was a Kashering, I presume he means on Pesach. So he says it's Hefsim Ruba, Mnir Simchas Yant, any ben Yoim, but a whole tekel things together. Then it's also that is also. He says if it's ain't ben Yoim, it's only going to be mutter. It's only mutter. The Hefsim Ruba, Mnir Simchas Yant. Anything is mutter from before Pesach. So if you use a kli that
you're using it on Pesach, using it before Pesach.
Right.
If you're using it on Pesach, and it doesn't help anything.
Right. If you be using it before Pesach,
what we always do is everything is before
right.
Pesach.
But if you do something a kli that's ain't ben Yoim before Pesach, it's kosher. It's not the evidence. I mean, it's not only been near simple. He's still not on yet. That was the simple case. So the Mishnah says that there's a chumrah for Pesach that's also even been except in very extreme cases. Okay. Mechaber continues. Even if you'll fill it up with gecholim, meaning so you took care of this problem. You put the gecholim on the inside. So the inside now that's how you're supposed to do it. You put the heat on the side where the bli is. That also doesn't work. Why the chashina demachayis l'ayisham paki? Or the in parentheses Shem Yisbalku. So the guy, this is a chashash rabbanan that maybe the person won't be careful. Or it's a chashash rabbanan, maybe he won't be careful. So he won't do a good job. Okay, so the person's not going to do a good job at his kashrus. Okay, so there's three different groups I think of how cases that they have to do with this chashash, the demopaki. Okay, now this chash, it says it here for Libun, the same chash is for hag'alos also, as you can imagine. I was able to put into three different groups. One is where it's mamish exactly like this kind of a case, okay, which is like regular Libun. Everybody, except if you're like some super expert with a lot of experience in this, anytime you go to the blowtorch to a kli, especially if you want to do Libun gamur, even in most cases for Libun kal, if you're trying to Libun gamur, there's almost automatically a chashash of domapaki. There's a chashash, unless you're some super expert, there's a chashash that you're going to break it. Okay,
you'll warp it.
You're going to warp it. You're going to break it. Something's going to go wrong with it. Okay, it's an automatic. As a specific example, that there's oven belts are a thing that, very often will need Libun gamur. The belt that goes actually through the oven, in a lot of cases, needs Libun gamur. And there really is a way to cash them. There really is a way to do Libun gamur. Okay, someone at the OU, together with a company, developed this whole method of how to do Libun gamur. They set up fires, and maybe we'll talk about it at a different time. The belt goes through the oven to get preheated, and then they have a whole bank of flames right outside of it. So the belt is already 500-600 degrees, and then it goes through these flames, and it gets evenly heated back up to all the way up to Libun temperatures, and it's very thin, and they're able to do a Libun. Okay, so there is a way to do it. But for most people who are trying to do it, will be afraid to break it. This was done under, very carefully watched, and the people knew what they were doing and all kinds of things. But for most people doing Libun have exactly this chashash of domapaki. And also, when we get to halacha about, we'll talk about the mitzvah shem, a glass stovetop. If it's possible to do to kasher a glass stovetop. And one of the ideas of kashering is the Libun cow, okay, which is not a basic now, but the company tells you if you make this thing too hot and you heat this thing up too hard, it'll crack. Okay? That means is any person who's going to try whatever method we're going to think of to do Libun cow is in the back of their mind is concerned. Oh my gosh, I might crack this thing. Okay?
I did it.
You did, and you cracked it.
Right.
Okay, so because of that, so the chashash dumapaki, that's mama's case, is that the next time if you do it again, after you replace it the next year, your wife's going to say to you, Marsh, don't do it like last year.
Like my wife.
Okay, whatever it was. So you know what I mean. So, and that's the guy's chashash dumapaki. That's why you're not allowed to do Libun in a lot of cases.
15 minutes after I stop.
Let me cool down.
Right.
Okay, so that's another case. Oh, that's another case I was going to say also, which is there are big tanks that are used for storage of cold things. Okay? Cold things, so there's no bleeds in it, no regular bleeds, but there's bleeds of colors. In some cases, those need full hag'alos. Okay, you don't do meal of iri, you have to do a full hag'alos much later on. You have to do a full hag'alos to them. The problem is that the tank is made of very thin metal. It's not meant to handle heat. But it's not even that it can't handle heat. It's not like it's going to melt. It's made out of stainless steel. So what happens is you kasher it, and you fill it up with heat, and you boil it, and everything's wonderful, and you figure out how to kasher the whole thing. But what happens is at the end of the kashering, the tank has loads of steam in it. That's what's been filled up with steam. Steam is I forgot what they told me in the class, but steam, if you take this much water, takes up this much amount of space in steam. Okay? It is a huge difference in space. So when your whole tank is full of steam, then you finish kashering. They say, okay, guys, let's drain this thing out. Somebody opens up the top of the tank, okay, or opens something up to cool it down so they can start putting product into it. What happens? The steam collapses, it condenses into liquid, turns from the steam into a liquid. So all the stuff that used to take up this amount of space now takes up this amount of space. And the pressure from all of a sudden the tank is empty. It's like a vacuum sucks into the inside of the tank, and the whole tap. It collapses.
I don't want to cool away.
So it has to be cooled down very slowly. What I'm saying is that if you were to say to a company, we're going to kasher this thing, if they have any brains, or the mashgiach has any brains, they would be afraid that the guy is going to collapse the tank. Because the tank can handle the heat, it can handle the heat, but the second you turn the kashering off, and somebody drastically cools down, it's going to happen like what happened to you, which is when it cools down, the inside of the tank will be completely empty. It'll be a vacuum, and the outside will smash the tank in. So if it's a stronger tank, it can handle it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's more reinforced. It's meant to handle hotter things, and it's meant for different kinds of things. It won't do that. It's a chashash. That's mam's chashash of dumapaki. That's the same kind of a thing. And two other ones. One is if you have companies have this thing. There's a real thing. Not companies. There's a real thing that you're not supposed to have steam and hot water running through the same line at the same time. Okay, I don't remember what the problem is, but it's very not good for people.
Steam and what?
And and water at the same time in the pipe. Okay, you could have water pipes and you could have steam pipes, but the combination is not good. I don't remember why. So in washing, particularly in washing trucks. Okay, to get much cushion.
Is there a steam water line?
No. That is, there's a steam line and a water line. Like in your sink, you have a hot water and a cold water, and there's a place where they mix, where they merge, and then it gets right out. But they don't run through a pipe, through a length of pipe, steam and water at the same time. Okay? So when you catch a truck, so what you do is you want to pour boiling water through a thing, down to a spinner that goes into the truck. If you do the water there too high, if you do mamish at Kashering temperatures, you will get some boiling in that pipe. I'm not sure why this is special for trucks. Get some steam into that truck, and there's all kinds of cheress in those pipes. Okay, I'm not sure why. As I'm talking, I'm not sure why a doctor for trucks had that problem. For trucks, usually the Kashrus drop less than boiling at like 200 to keep the steam down. Okay, now one thing that's going to lead me to the next thing, to the next group is. If a caustic, which we use as a pagim, companies use it to clean, they use it at 140 degrees, 150 degrees. We think of it as a pagim, and we want it to be at Kashering temperatures, so we make it very hot. If that caustic is in an open kli, or like in a kettle, or if at the end of it, what you're doing with it is pouring into a drain, like into a closed drain. Into open drain, it's like falling on the floor, like full stuff in a plant that just runs into the drain. So a company will rightfully be concerned of safety. Okay, this is leading to the next thing where it's not a chashash dumapaki, but the person will be apprehensive to do kashering right because he's afraid here it's a safety concern that if having hot caustic around is super dangerous. People could really hurt themselves. So the company will rightfully be very apprehensive about it. And Mamela, as the rabbi says, come on, let's make it hotter, the guy over there is cringing and doing what he can. So there it's not a chashash that I won't do the kashering right because I'm afraid it's going to break. But there is a related chashash, which is I'm not going to do the kashering right because this guy's standing over me saying, oh, come on, Rabbi, don't do it. You can't do that. I'm afraid. And whatever it is. And so anything like that is within this group of you can't kasher in a situation where there's a guy might not do it.
How do you know this last one? I mean, I could argue that every kashering has some danger to it. What does it say this last mean?
No, if the person who's doing the kashering is afraid to do the kashering for some reason, okay, so the chashash here is
you're right. You're right. Is that this, you're afraid of getting hurt is included. I don't think that I need I can't prove to you that the mechaber will tell you that thing is awesome. But the same logic that says to you, saying that claim somewhere, who first?
No, but it says in the Shulchan Aruch that if you're concerned and you're afraid, you might not do the kashering right.
I understand, but every kashering is dangerous.
Why is every kashering dangerous?
Boiling kettles, people got hurt.
Okay, so that's correct. People have.
And in the Libun, you start talking about stones and water splashing.
If a person's doing a kashering where they're afraid to do the kashering right, okay, no, there's something that can go wrong. Then the same way the mechaber said that's what seems. Okay, you're right. It doesn't say the mechaber. The same way the person's afraid of cracking their thing, and therefore we don't let him do a kashering where he's afraid he's going to break it because he might not do a good job because at the end he'll pull back.
By that token, two things. Number one, the case where this fellow put up the fire by the belt.
Yeah.
Right, even if you did it right, in my case, you're not supposed to do it because of the same chashash.
Oh, so but I'm getting to it. I'm going to hold 1 second for that. I'll answer.
This is a bunch of problems. I mean, got to solve this problem.
My third group of things. Well, this is the second group where it's not a chashash you're going to break it, but just a chashash of not a chashash you're going to break it, but some other like a safety concern. My other one was going to be there are places where you're not allowed to use a blowtorch against health regulations to use a blowtorch. So the guy is very apprehensive to use it. Okay, but the third group was where there's really no chashash at all. And for example and that's what happened with the case with the belts, kashering oven belt. What you do to prevent being afraid is you go. The company engineer has to be involved in making the kashering protocol. It's not on my head. And it's not even that it's me against you. It's not me saying which kash like this, and the engineer is sitting there screaming at me. It's that I say to the engineer, this is what I need. How do you think you could do it? And we work together so that when we finish the plan, he's a part of the plan. So that in this case with the oven belts, the reason why they weren't afraid of it breaking is because the company personnel built it, and they took responsibility for it, and they said, look, we think this is going to work, and we understand that if it doesn't work, yes.
Right? Then I don't think that helps.
Because
it's a G'day Rabbanon. Chazal don't.
But it says
no.
I'm going to do right. I'm going to do right. I do the $1,000. I don't care. I do the $1,000.
We're going to see in a second that you could still do Libun. The G'day Rabbanon is not don't ever do Libun. The G'day Rabbanon is yes, you have to do it. So you have to do. We'll see in a second. You have to do it in a way that it's clear that you're willing to do the full kashering and take the risk. That's what the did is. That you have to do something that makes it obvious and clear that you're not afraid over here.
But I don't care about $50. I've spent $1,000 on my answer. I don't care about $50 for a keli. Okay?
But the guy in the company did not spend $1,000 on this estimate.
Okay, but he's right. He's certain,
Okay, so you can't. I don't have a hard and fast rule, but the rule that does work is what you say is you're afraid of people getting hurt, of water splashing over the place. The companies more care about people getting hurt than about kashering. That's their thing more than it's our thing. We care about kashering. They care about people. Now we care about people getting hurt also, but we're thinking more about the kashering. They're thinking about the hurt. So we say to the company, "I ain't going to have boiling water over here. What are we going to do to keep people from getting hurt? Oh, it's going to be caustic. How can we? I don't want caustic spilling on the floor. It's going to hurt somebody." So the company is good at designing. That's what companies do. Their engineering or their sanitation people do these things. You guys have to be part of the program. The OU went so far. This took us even a different angle. Maybe not exactly for this reason. They made a kashering release form. They have a form that before they do kashering, the company's got to sign that we understand that kashering involves heat, taking equipment to situations that it doesn't usually go to, and we accept that. We're willing to take that. Okay, so they actually gave Abe asked if we could use their form. They said yeah. And it's all the same idea, which is if the company is part of the kashering, if the company people who know about these things are part of Kashering, then they're not as nervous because they help design, and then the rabbi can do his job better, and he doesn't have this apprehension to do his thing.
So right there, he has the biggest kasha.
Okay.
If I would take what the Shulchan just says you can't do, the company owns, and when the company will sign a release form, and they'll do the protocol, would you say it's okay to go against the Shulchan just said?
No, I would not say. Because I personally would be afraid of cracking the thing. Like, I'm still afraid I'm going to break the thing. But if
what are you afraid of? They signed the release. What do you care?
Okay.
Hey, they're going to lose the money, not you.
Okay, so we have to think. They have to think of the situation. In this case of a belt, in this case of oven belts, if I walked into a company and said, "Let's cash the other belt," and I run this whole system, okay, I would be nervous, and they would be considering that I'm going to ruin their belt. The belt costs $10,000, and I'm about to ruin it. This crazy guy.
But I'm trying to say that there's somewhat of a like book, there's somewhat of a Shulchan Aruch says you can't. The gamur says you can't do it like this. No matter how many precautions you're going to take, that I won't be scared because it's not mine. It doesn't help, right?
Same answer is that it's going to say in a second there are cases that you can't do. When you make it clear and everyone's comfortable, it's like very outly open that it's good. Okay. One more.
It's not you.
One more thing I want to mention. Two more things. Is first of all, this that companies say. I said about caustic in an open piece of equipment. Companies will say all the time, Rabbi, we can't make the caustic to be at Kashering temperatures because it's going to ruin our equipment. Okay, which is like a behind the scenes of a dumapaki. Okay, they think we can't do it because it's going to ruin the equipment, or the caustic won't work. Okay, those are two opposites of things. So I want to explain the answers to both of those things. First of all is, in truth, caustic at high temperatures doesn't not work.
And when you say caustic, is it one raw material? Or
caustic. Caustic is one.
What is it?
I forgot what it is.
Ammonium. It's a chemical.
When it gets caustic is the thing.
Caustic is one.
I don't remember. One thing. Caustic soda is one.
When it gets to high temperatures. When it gets to a high, it's a base. It's not an acid. It's a base. When it gets to a higher temperature, it works better. I mean, it functions as it functions better. However, the reason why you're not supposed to make it hot is first of all because of safety. It doesn't ruin the equipment per se. What it does is like this: at higher temperatures, the water that's mixed into there boils off, leaving a film of caustic on your equipment. Okay, because what it does is if you do it at the temperatures you're supposed to, 140, 150, it does its cleaning effectively, and then it rinses out well. If you make it too hot, then it leaves a film on your equipment. So you don't want to make food in that. You don't want to make food afterwards. So you're not supposed to do it at high temperatures because not that it's not effective at cleaning, but it leaves itself something behind. And so the company has to do a better cleaning afterwards, which is kooky. Usually you have to use the soap. Now it's clean. They just have to rinse it off. Here you have to do another cleaning afterwards to get rid of the caustic because you left the film behind.
Okay, a company told me that it'll make burns inside the equipment.
It doesn't make burns. Burn is not right. It leaves deposits on the equipment.
That's what it means.
Okay, that's what I was told in the class. I'm from a cleaning company. That's what it does. It leaves films behind on the equipment, which you have to clean it well. So you have to.
It's even inside like a pipe to a pasteurizer.
Correct. That's exactly the kind of case. Now the other side is that people say, well, if I do it at such a high temperature, either water or caustic, this is either one, my gaskets are gonna break. The gasket is the part that seals. You have all the plates next to each other. So it's like a gasket around the edges to keep the stuff from leaking out. So they say my gaskets are going to melt. They're only rated for 160 degrees. They're only rated for 175 degrees. If I do it at high temperatures, it's going to melt. It's going to ruin them. It's going to ruin my gaskets. Okay, so Tetra Pak told us about that. They said, look, the gasket can handle much more degrees than it says on the number we gave it, and any gasket can handle Kashering. But a gasket is supposed to last, let's say, a year. At a normal temperature, it's going to last for a year. If you use it at 200 degrees, it's going to last only for 6 months. If you use it at 250 degrees, it'll last for 1 month. So we give it a rating because this is meant for a normal wear and tear of this gasket. It'll last for a year at this temperature. If you do it at high temperatures, it cuts down the life of the gasket, how long it's going to last for. But that means if you do it all day long, if you do 5 minutes of Kashering once a week or 5 minutes once a month of Kashering, so you've cut down the life of this gasket by 30 seconds. If you do all day long, you keep pasteurizing your stuff at 200 degrees, instead of lasting for a year, it's going to last for 6 months. So you're not supposed to do that. But if you do it for 5 minutes a month, then how much have you cut down? It's not when you hit that temperature, all of a sudden the whole thing just breaks apart. is that it gives more wear to it at a higher temperature. So the Kashering is going to, yes, it will affect the life of it, but let's be real, it's going to affect the life by 30 seconds. It's not going to make any meaningful difference to the company. So it's not, it's kedai to know that, because then the company is not choishish dimopaki. The company is not, that should relieve company tension from letting you do Kashering at the temperature. Okay, let's go on.
And where is that your information from?
Tetra Pak, who makes this stuff. They make it. They said to us, it's not true. They said it's just a matter of life expectancy. The ones that are rated for higher temperatures can handle high temperatures for longer time.
Is there only chashasha the gaskets or something else?
That's usually what the chashash is. The gaskets, the rubber parts and the plastic, they can't handle it. Look, it says on the paper, it's only rated 275 degrees. You want to do 210 degrees, it's only rated for 175. And so I'm not saying there isn't such a thing as something that will melt at that temperature. But for these gaskets, which is a big, they always mention these things.
The gaskets are primarily the rubber.
The rubber stuff, the whole, when you put two pieces of equipment together, you have like a washer in between, keep from leaking. Right. So they say, my gaskets are only rated for this temperature. I can't run a higher temperature. And the answer to that is, if they would go back to the company, they don't have to trust you. Go back to the guy who's supplying and say to him, is it mean that at 200 degrees it's going to just completely melt and disappear? Or at 200 degrees it's going to have a little bit of less, you can, I'm saying that's the truth. They can ask their supplier for the same information. Okay.
So there's never a reason to go less than 212?
Right. I can't say never. Never is a strong word. But for these kind of things, yes, nothing's going to happen to them at 212 degrees.
So why don't we enforce it?
Well, I
don't think many places can get it to it.
Okay, that's its own different parasha. Okay, let's go on. If you take the cheress and you put it back into the kiln, where it was made originally, mutter the kivin shemachnisim lehesek gadol kazeh vade lechayis alay dumapaki. So the mechaber sounds like he's saying that if you put it into the kishron, you show that you're not concerned that it's going to break, because in such a high heat, obviously you're taking that kind of risk. So you're obviously willing to take that risk. It's a very very plausible it's going to happen. So you're not choishish. Not everybody says it that way. Okay, the Torah says that if you put it into a kiln, there's so much heat from the inside and from the outside that now I'm putting words into the Torah's mouth, that there's an evenly heated, and things don't warp when evenly heated. Okay, if you take a oven rack in your oven and it's made out of very, very thin metal, okay, if you put a blowtorch onto that, you're going to warp it because half of it is hot and half of it is cold. If you self-clean your oven, your racks are not going to, those thin little grades are not going to warp. And it's not because they make super racks to go into self-clean ovens. It's because it's evenly heated. It slowly heats up, and the whole thing gets heated up together, and then it slowly cools down all together. It's only if it's unevenly heated, which is really what the Torah is saying. If it's unevenly heated, then it could break. If you heat it up all together, I'm not saying everything, but many things, that thin little rack, the mom's like a thin little wire of nothing. If you evenly heat it up to 1,000 degrees and then slowly cool down, it'll be fine. That's what the Torah says, and the Taz says that the Mishnah Berurah brings his Taz, who says like this. He says, it's such a fast process. It's so easy to do Libun in a kiln. It's such a quick process that he can't not do it for long enough, because the second you put it in, it comes to Libun in 2 seconds. So what are you going to say? I'm not going to do it long enough? As soon as I stick it in, it's basically done. So that you can't be chash that he's going to do it less because he's afraid it's going to break, because as soon as he gets it in, it's ready to come out. Okay, that's the but now let's put it in a regular oven, because a regular oven is not that kind of heat. Okay, I'm going to try to finish up. Like this, the gamur in the Zvachim is the kasha. This whole din just said that you had to lead gamur to a cheress. So I'm going to tell you Rashi's question first, which is, how come the Torah doesn't say you can do lead gamur? We're saying this is lead gamur. It doesn't say it for Kalim of Kashering. It doesn't say you can do lead gamur. It says you have to break it. Why does it say you should do lead gamur? So Rashi says the reason why is exactly because of this din. There's a remez to this din in the Torah, because there were no kivshonis in the midbar. The Eden then they were traveling. They didn't have time to set up kivshonis, and since they didn't have, they probably had ovens.
Time. That's what they did have.
What?
They had
time. Okay, no, they didn't. The way Rashi, they didn't have like the permanence to set it down. Like they didn't know that they weren't like settled enough to open up businesses and like that. Right. So yes, you're right. They did have time. Okay, but anyhow, so that's Rashi why they didn't. The Torah didn't tell them to make it, because in the Mishnah there's no shit.
When the Torah said just wait a day.
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so then the Gemara, good question. So the Gemara says, why didn't it say in Yerushalayim? Why is it you should break kli cheress that you made kachim in it? Why does it say? So you should just put it into the kitchen. So the Gemara says.
His name would be B'diavad.
So the Gemara says.
Only the Rabbanan though.
It was only the Rabbanan.
Okay,
So the Gemara says in Yerushalayim there were no Kashering. There were no Kashering in Yerushalayim. So in Yerushalayim you had no way, and you couldn't take it out of Yerushalayim. I guess because it's Yotzei to take it out of Yerushalayim. I'm not sure. I'm guessing, but I don't know. So the Gemara says you couldn't do that. Okay, so what about for Kashering? Why doesn't it say for Kashering you should do Libun gamur? Okay, now I'm not sure what he means because the Torah's Maram is that you can do Libun gamur, but Taisa says when you do Libun, the Kli becomes like a new Kli. When you do a real Libun, it's like a new Kli. So there's no way to use this Kli. This Kli can't be used. If you'll stick it into a kitchen and you'll refire it and you'll do Libun, you'll have a new Kli. But this Kli that you have, you can't use. That's just an fault. Okay, fine. Okay. If you have a minute, we're going to do one side thing. We talk here that you're supposed to do Libun gamur to Kashrus or kli cheress. Okay? As you probably know, the Eater says, he's Medai from Yerushalmi, that for an Issa D'Rabbanan that was below into a kli cheress, then you don't have to do Libun. You could do hag'alos 3 times. If you do hag'alos 3 times for a kli cheress that was below Issa D'Rabbanan, then it's good enough. And his svara is, he's saying Yerushalmi, but he says the svara is, the reason why you can't do hag'alos to cheress is because there's so much bliya, hag'alos won't get it out. So the Yerushalmi's svara is, well, if he did 3 hag'alos, by then you must have gotten all the bliya out. 1 hag'alos won't get it out, but 3 hag'alos will. So maybe we wouldn't be mechadish or svara for a real issue. It's only this is Rabbanan. So the Chacham said, you do 3 hag'alos, by then you've gotten all the bliyas out of it. Okay, that's what the Eater says. He's medai from Yerushalmi. But the Eater says, the Yerushalmi is talking about, I forgot which case, maybe Truma, I don't remember which case it's talking about. He says, so maybe the Yerushalmi only means to be makel by Issa D'Rabbanan she'ein la ikam min ha'Torah. Okay, D'Rabbanan is not like a completely made up Issa D'Rabbanan, not one that's based on the Deraisa. And so he's misopik about it, and that's how the Mechaber Paschal said that you're only allowed to be makel. You only could do 3 hag'alos for Issa D'Rabbanan she'ein la ikam min ha'Torah. And there's 2 examples of that, and only one of us for us. One is Bishul Akum. That's a serious example for us. And the other one is Chalas Chutzards. Okay, it's only was made in a Kli without, they weren't allowed for Shchal. So for Chalas Chutzards, you could do hag'alos 3 times for Kli cheress. That's not only Ikam min ha'Torah. That's considered Yesh Ikam min ha'Torah. Okay, so there's 2 side points. I'm going to just say quickly. I won't say it, which is this din that you do 3 hag'alos if the Bishul Akum for Kli cheress instead of Libun. Now there's another kind of a Kli that needs Libun. One Kli that needs Libun is the Kli that was used for a Kli cheress. Kli cheress needs Libun. There's another kind of Kli that needs Libun, which is a Kli that you use the food directly on the fire. You broiled a steak on a grill, you have to do Libun on it. Okay? So could you do 3 hag'alos if it was something was broiled directly on the fire, not cheress? There's a piece of metal something that brought directly onto the fire, which was Bishul Akum. Okay? And there's a very real example of it. You make fried eggs, or many other things that are Bishul Akum, and you do it in an oven. Okay? You do it on a belt, it goes right through an oven. So you did the issue that's here is only the issue of Bishul Akum. It was a Kli that needs Libun, so there's this rule that the Eater said that you could, instead of Libun, you can do Hag'alah. He said it by Kli cheress, but he said the same rule by a different Kli that needs Libun for a different reason. The Svar seemingly would apply, because he says Hag'alah takes out bliyas, so 3 hag'alos takes out all the bliyas. So it's only by certain cases. Okay, but Bishul Akum, he would say it. So would he say that Torah by a Kli that needs Libun not because it was cheress, but needs Libun because it was done directly into the fire? So I'm not going to say what he said, but Rabbi Belsky had a Kal V'chaimer to say that yes, you are allowed to. Rabbi Shef would argue that. I'm going to give you something, you'll see. But it's a whole deal, and in fact, it's in Divin Makil as to whether you're allowed to do that or not. Okay, it's a child in Divin Makil and some other Achronim also as to whether you're allowed to do that. The other thing was whether you could be. I'm going to leave that one for now. Okay, we'll leave that. Okay, one more thing we have to just read the Ramah is the Ramah says if a Kli needs to be kashered and you didn't do the kashering or you didn't do the full kashering, then you're not allowed to use it for anything else. You're not allowed to use it in the meantime. Say, well, I'm using it for cold. There's no bleed, it's cold. And this is an Issa D'Rabbanan. This is it's a minig D'Rabbanan, and the reason it's a minig which is, and the reason for the minig is because you make mistakes. If you're already using this clear, you're using it for cold, you might use it for hot also. Okay, like Abe told me that they let people using glass plates for cold at a smorgasbord. Okay, so they put it out by the fruit, figuring they'll use these tray kelim, they'll use them for the fruit, which is cold. But the people then moved over to the hot side of the smorgasbord, and they started using it also. So they realized that. That's what the minig is. Don't use it for cold because if it's hot around, because you might use it. So a smorgasbord is a more controlled situation. They can put it at a smorgasbord that's only cold and not at a place where it's hot also. But the minig is to not use to not use kalim for cold because of a chashash that you might end up using it for hot also. Okay, so at the end it says ayin yerideh. Ayin yerideh sim kuf chafalf. Where the Rama says, but b'derech akro you are allowed to use it. This is only the kviyas, but that's not you are allowed to use it. So this mamash's case came up this week that a caterer, the normal setup is that caterers, when they go to hotels, do not bring glass drinking glasses. They use the drink glasses from the place. Even though the kelim are treif, maybe they put hot cocoa into it, maybe they wash it in the dishwasher. The cups might be treif. What are you going to do with it? You're just going to drink seltzer. What are you going to do with it? So they let them. Many hag'alos will let the caterers use the tray glasses that belong to the hotel. So the guy said, one of the caterers says, well, if I could use their tray glasses, let me take my own glasses, and I'll use them from the inflations also. I'll use the same glasses from the inflations. And of course, they're going to come trade in his dishwasher. They are going to be milk inflations.
Oh, but those are always going to be used for
I'll use it for cold. So if I could use the hotel's tray glasses, I could use my tray glasses for cold also. So the difference is, if you use your own glasses for both, that's bekviyas. You have set that you're using tray glasses or milk glasses for fleshings and flesh glasses for milk. If you're using the hotel glasses, that's bakroy. I'm coming to the hotel and I came in today. I want to take a drink. I take a drink out of the glass. But if these are my glasses, that's bekviyas. I have milk glasses and I'm using them for fleshing, or I have tray glasses and I'm using them for both. That's different than using the hotel glasses, where that's. I came to the hotel. I came for a chassan. How often do I go to a chassan? I walk in there. So fine, I don't let take a drink out of the cup. But if the caterer has only one set of dishes, that's exactly what the minig is. But there are people who do that. I mean, who do what?
This is developed.
I'm not talking about whether individuals can have it. Is a different thing because they're using it because they don't think it becomes trade. That's a different. But in the caterer, we're working with the assumption. Okay, without explaining, we're working with the assumption that as the caterer, those things are really milchus of flesh, not that they're kosher. Okay, we'll just put that on the side. We're just working with the assumption that it was. You're right. It's different than in a home. There's maybe potential why you could. Okay, now, but there's two arguments against this. Two arguments against using hotel drinking glasses. One is Rabbi Shefter's argument. I don't remember his raya. I have to ask. But he has a raya that bakroy means once every 30 days. Less than once every 30 days. That's a gather of akroy. If you do something more than once every 30 days, that's not bakroy.
So if I go to a hotel every week and I want to eat breakfast over there.
So that may be not. That might be not because today I went bakroy to here, here I went bakroy to here. But if the caterer makes parties in this place 3 times a week, then you can't call it bakroy.
Who's the bakroy? On the caterer or on the guest?
That's a good question. That's a good question. That's a fair question. I'm not sure. But now, Shaul told me, I think this is from him first, that he had a different time on this whole thing. He said, bakroy means, it came up. He went off to Iowa, and you're stuck there. So you're in the hotel, so you have to drink. This is the class of the game. This is what you drink from. He says, if you are a caterer and you don't buy glasses and you make parties, that's what you do is you make parties, and every week you're going to make a party. That's a setup. That's not an akroy. Akroy means that you got stuck in a situation. You're in a situation, so then you're allowed to do it.
If the guy has a minig, every time he stops at places where he's out of town, and he's going.
Those are bakroy. That's not.
That's right. I just shut it into like a wind. The hurricane dropped me in this place. I planned on the trip to go there.
You're right. I don't mean. He doesn't mean bakroy meaning that it has to just be by mistake. Oh my gosh, I'm starving downtown. I need a drink.
It's very fine. What's the difference?
Because a guy who sets up his business to run a certain way, he schedules a party. He knows exactly what that's his whole business. That's the opposite of bakroy. I have to just say, these two times, notwithstanding, it's very common that all hashgachas let people do that. These are just times up. One last thing.
Isn't this No, it's applies for company, Goyish company.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. Which is the last. This was a year. The caterer, and many caterers are Jewish. The last thing I want to mention was, should this apply to companies? Should we say to a company, you have trade kalim, and today they want to make a special run of something, and so they call.
On a regular basis.
Or regular basis. They want to do it every day. This is what they do. So the trade, they make high, but the kosher, they make cold. The kosher, that's the way they make the kosher. It's always cold. So this is a machlokes. Okay, machlokes like this. Rabbi Knack says, no minute. Goyim don't have to do minhagim. Goyim have to do Shem mitzvah b'nei. Well, they have to do minhagim. This is what they want from their life. So they don't have the minute. So we have to make sure it's kosher. Yeah, it's kosher. They don't have that minute. It's not their problem. And Rabbi Belsky and Rabbi Shechter argued for the following. Rav Moshe says that to use a kli that's Eina ben Yamin, the food that you make is 100% kosher. It's kosher l'chadchila. But Rav Moshe says you shouldn't do it. We shouldn't give hashkacha to someone who does it. Because it's davar mechur. He says, how could it be that in my house I can't do it? When I go to certify your company, I say, you can do this, and it has my stamp on it that you're allowed to do this thing. He says, so something's wrong about doing that thing. So they said, well, that means is if you can't do it at home, don't do it at the company. Don't let the company do it. So you at home can't do this big fias, then the company can't do it either. Rabbi Gnack says, no, mechur, that's like taking it really far. That's for really surim. This is just a minute. And they said, that's exactly what Moshe was trying to say was, don't be such a chacham and say, I figured out that really you're not allowed to do this, but for you, you're the guy, you're allowed to do this. That's exactly what mechur is that if you can't do it in your house, you shouldn't be doing it. Don't be so smart and say, this is the right thing. What?
I use Rabbi Gnack.
You use Rabbi Gnack. Okay. I meant to answer for short. I haven't got to answer which way you think. So, Mr. Shem,
I'm trying to think of if there happens anybody.
Of course it does. A company that their trade.
We do it.
We're doing it now?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, Mishra. They do have hot stuff. I mean, you know.
Their trade is hot.
I mean, we are.
Turn up the thing.
Okay. Anyhow, we'll mention it next week.